So there's a lot of talk about John Fetterman and the state that he's in right now. And I would argue if there's something going on with Fetterman, it is largely biological, either the result of his strokes or whatever's happening. And he'll have, like people who go through that, good days and bad days. I refuse to get angry with the guy for his behavior. I'm going to because that feels like ableism to me. I'm just going to say outright, okay? I'm about to sneeze, so hold on. Beg your pardon. Thank you. But here's John Fetterman asking a question of Sam Altman. Now, this is Sam Altman, and for those of you who don't know, he's the head of OpenAI, who was fired by the people at OpenAI for not being safe enough about it, and then was rehired when the kind of company's ability to get capital went down, because he really is sort of the brains amongst these folks. Unlike Elon Musk, Altman actually does work on the shit he's talking about, which is why he is sort of brutal when he's making fun of Elon Musk. I enjoy watching him, in the rare instances where he speaks freely, because he worked with Musk in the opening days of OpenAI, and Musk is basically this dude who's just got money from money and knows nothing about the industries that he's involved in. He knows enough to bullshit at cocktail parties, and that's basically it. But anyways, Fetterman asks Sam Altman about the singularity during this hearing on AI. And that, for those of you who don't know, the singularity is a framework largely pushed by Ray Kurzweil, the inventor of the Kurzweil K2000, the sampler that basically gave us hip hop and a lot of sort of modern the early European invasion from Pet Shop Boys and Duran Duran and all that kind of stuff. The K2000 made that possible. That's where you got all your synth music from the early 80s. And he's been, that's just one of the many things he's done. But he's one of these longevity dudes. He's looking forward. He wants, this idea that you could live to be 1,000 years old. And they've been working on this. I've done stand up for their organization that has worked on this a couple of, back when they were doing regular things. After COVID, they stopped doing their regular meeting for everybody's sake. They're like, oh, diseases that you can catch. All right, that would kind of throw a monkey wrench in our plan. So until we found a complete cure for these things, let's just do this by Zoom, right? So, but I would do jokes based on what the technology I would see there, and kind of write a show based on what I saw the future being, and jokes largely that only they would get, because we all just watch the same seminars and the same talks. So anyways, Altman is the singularity is when humans and computers will join and never disconnect. So either we'll all have a chip in our brain, or we'll all be slightly cyborgs, or our iPhone will become a iPhone. You just, somebody will scoop out your real eyeball and put another one in, and it'll have your own proprietary trained AI on your own life experience. So you can never forget anything if you don't want to, or you can forget everything you don't like to hear about anymore. All that kind of shit. But this idea that we will join with computers and almost never unjoin. And I would argue that with everybody carrying their phone around, there's a big section of the populace that has already done this. It's just a clunky version of it, okay? So, but the singularity is getting closer in concept, because once AI hits AGI or ASI, which is artificial general intelligence, which means AI can do in a digital form any job that a human can do in general, or artificial superintelligence, which means it can do every job, from accounting to physics to answering phones or whatever. When it can do all that equally as well as a person who just does that job, that's the ASI. They fuck around with the terms, but that's basically what you need to know. That's the difference between AGI and ASI. I would argue that when they say AGI, that's really what most people think of when we think of AI. And that means we're not there. We don't even have AI yet until we have what they call AGI. Nerd alert. Okay. But anyways, so Fetterman's asking, when might this happen? And this is an important question to ask. So kudos to Fetterman for asking it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, hello. Mr. Smith, I'm a big supporter of energy. For me, Energy security is national security. And of course, renewables about that, but of course other things as well too, fossil. But also that also includes nuclear. Of course, nuclear is important. And now then there's that kind of energy transition. My focus is also that I want to make sure that ratepayers in Pennsylvania really aren't hit too hard throughout all of this. Now, the Washington Post reported that increasing electricity demand for the data centers is going to raise up residential power bills, perhaps as much by 20%. Now, to me, that's really a concern for me and certainly for Pennsylvania families. Now, the data center, has important jobs during construction and doing those things, and that's a great thing, of course. But they're not, I guess, long term. But the rate, those rates might last longer for that. And now I've been tracking the plan to reopen TMI. I mean, I had my own personal story is I had to grab my hamster and evacuate, during the meltdown in 1979. You might assume that I was anti-nuclear, and that is not. I actually am very supportive of nuclear.
TMI is 3 Mile Island, by the way, not too much information. And he would have been a kid, and that's why he would have grabbed his hamster and split.
Because that's an important part of the stack. If you really want to have and address climate change, you can't turn your back on nuclear, in my opinion. But I know that's the power of Microsoft's data center. So now, and I really appreciate that, but if I'm saying now, if we're able to commit that the power purchase agreement, it's not going to raise electricity for Pennsylvania families.
No, I think you raise a critical point. We have two principles that we follow when we're constructing these data centers. Number one, we will invest to bring onto the grid an amount of electricity that equals the amount of electricity that we will use, so that we're not tapping a constricted supply. Number two, we will manage all of this in a way that ensures that our activity does not raise the price of electricity to the community. And so I was describing earlier.
Which would, by the way, one of the things that Trump is like, we're going to let him build a coal plant next to the thing, which is just horseshit. None of these fuckers in these high-tech firms want to live next to a fucking coal plant or work there fucking 10 hours a day, as this fucking coal plant chugs away next door. They all want micronuclear. That's where they want to start. They want secondarily, they want renewables for any battery storage. You're going to see solar panels across the entire top of these buildings. You're going to see geothermal taps if they're in fucking Montana and Wyoming and the like. And you're going to see maybe some wind turbines if they're in states where there's enough wind to carry it, where it's regular enough where that will add to how much they're doing. But ultimately what these guys are going to be building and what they're going to want to do is micronuclear, which is effectively the same nuclear reactor you would find in a nuclear submarine next to a building on a smaller scale. And these are the kind that don't have the similar meltdown issues that a giant one that is meant to power an entire city or a state, like the giant nuclear facilities that we've seen in the past.
If there's improvements that need to be made to the grid, as there often are, we'll go to the Utility Commission. We will propose a change in the rate that we are charged so that we can pay for that improvement. I just think it's a fact of life, because I think you highlight something critical. There's a lot of jobs when the construction takes place. There are jobs afterwards, but they are not as many. One will wear out the welcome quickly if we tax, in effect, the neighborhood by asking.
And that's what I've been saying about, by the way, the factories that Trump is talking about. These will be an energy tax on the neighborhood, because if you have a giant factory in town that makes cars or robots or fucking TV sets or whatever the shit they're going to be building in these things, if they're going to move, they're going to reshore stuff, that's fine. But these are going to be giant vending machines. And if there are no jobs, but they just raise your electric rates because they're running down the street chugging 24/7, and you're paying more for your electricity because the thing exists, but nobody in your neighborhood is getting, a better life because they have a job there, or if they are, it's 12 fucking people. Nobody's going to want that.
Everyone to pay more for their electricity because we have arrived.
Yikes, CSL, annoying.
Get it. we know we have to be a good and responsible member of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Well, now, one of the perks of being a senator is that, for me anyway, I get an opportunity to meet people that have led much more impressive kinds of jobs or careers that I've led. And now, Mr. Altman, now this is I'm going to count this as a highlight recently. Like, I know the work that you've done, and you're really one of the people that are moving AI. And now it's an opportunity. I was excited to meet you. And now people ask me, it's like, if you're going to talk about AI, and now I get to ask you, I mean, like the expert, some people are worried about AI or whatever. And I'm like, what about the singularity? So, the people like that, if you would address that, please.
Thank you, Senator, for the kind words and for normalizing hoodies in more spaces. I'd love to see that. I am...
By the way, that's true. Like OpenAI, it's like a Google environment. I think he's one of the few that does wear a suit on occasion.
I am incredibly excited about the rate of progress, but I also am cautious and I would say, like, I don't know, I feel small next to it or something. I think this is beyond something that we all fully yet understand where it's going to go. This is, I believe, among the biggest, maybe it'll turn out to be the biggest technological revolutions humanity will have ever produced. And I feel privileged to be here. I feel curious and interested in what's going to happen. But I do think things are going to change quite substantially. I think humans have a wonderful ability to adapt, and things that seem amazing will become the new normal very quickly. We will figure out how to use these tools to just do things we could never do before. And I think it will be quite extraordinary. But these are going to be tools that are capable of things that we can't quite wrap our heads around. And some people call that, as these tools start helping us to create future iterations, some people call that singularity, some people call that the takeoff, whatever it is, it feels like a sort of new era of human history. And I think it's tremendously exciting that we get to live through that and we can make it a wonderful thing. But we've got to approach it with humility and some caution.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just, for me, it's been, I get a chance to ask questions to a lot of Edisons, as well, too. Like, the kinds of things that you're all collectively involved are going to transform our society, and people will look back 50, 60 years ago and see what's happened. So for me, over to the chairman. Thank you.
I yield back is the phrase you were looking for. And again, obviously there's a guy, John Fetterman, who I met with his wife in Pennsylvania years ago before he ran for Senate. And both of them were just fucking lovely. Fetterman is very much a big, imposing, lurch-like fellow in general. He looks dangerous. He looks like a bouncer at a fucking vampire club when you meet him. And his wife is lovely, but she looks like she runs a coven, and I mean that in the best way. And so between the two of them, I had a great conversation with them, and they do both give a shit. In this particular case, whatever's up with him because of what he's been through physically, and again, being a giant dude like that, being relatively out of shape for a long time, I don't know what his diet's like, but it's not surprising that, if he's had a stroke related to that stuff, it's going to have impact. The fact that he's even up and walking around is a miracle in and of itself. But when he gets down to it, and he's, as hard as it is for him to get those words out, the questions he asked were valuable. More valuable, I would argue, than most of the questions that were asked in that hearing. Yeah. So, and it's a crucial aspect of this, I think, and it was nice that, Altman, all joke aside about the hoodie and the normalization of it, is talking about it. And this brings to the point what I was saying earlier about everyone is dumb about AI. They're not stupid. They're dumb. Now, there's an argument that Elon Musk is stupid because he knows enough to know that he's lying or wrong, which means when he does a lot of stuff, he's being stupid. What he's doing with Grok is stupid. But insofar as the impact, the long-term impact, or even the short-term impact, the time scale, no one knows. And so everyone is ignorant, therefore dumb about it. And so planning for it becomes very, very difficult. Not impossible, but you can plan for stages that you can see coming up. I can see the next step in front of me, but it's very much like a highway when you're driving in in snow or fog or whatever, and your lamp lights, the road extends, the direction you're going, but you don't necessarily, you're unfamiliar with the road, and you don't know if it curves quickly anywhere, but you can only really see to the edge of your headlights, right? You can only see to that part. And unless you're really fucking white knuckling it, you might not turn in time when there's a cliff ahead. And that's what he's talking about with the proceeding with humility and caution. And the reality of this is because only an idiot would drive like with one hand on the wheel, pedal to the metal, like, I know what this road's based. It's basically a straightaway. I don't know, and then Thelma and Louise. So that proceeding with caution and when that might actually happen, the real answer is nobody knows. And it might even be worse than nobody knows, or better, depending on your opinion, is that by the time we realize when it might happen, it will have already happened in most areas. We will have already reached a benchmark that, like, oh shit, we're not going back from this, which is really what the singularity is. That change, when you go, oh wow, everybody is adapting to this kind of permanently. We're expecting this, whether it's, we're using AI to genetically modify people's children before they're born to guarantee that they don't have birth defects, which I think would be, the ethical argument about that is really hard to make, against it. But at the same time, people, there will be people who insist that that's playing God, in the same way that people who thought vaccines or antibiotics were playing God, God chooses who he wants sick and to die. And if you can't weather it, you're not supposed to be around, and you're either flying in the face of God's plan or you're avoiding evolution because you're letting the weak, procreate, right? That's the Maoist, Stalinist, atheist version of the God knows who should live and who should die. It's the same people making the same stupid argument from two different perspectives, but it's the same lack of caring for humanity. So there's going to be a big pushback on this shit. But those people, I guess, ultimately will vanish from the earth. And the other thing, it's going to increase lifespan. It's going to solve most problems. You're definitely going to see a situation where it helps create either synthetic organs to replace ones that break down at first, and then you're going to see your first synthetic kidneys, certain synthetic hearts that are more like made out of biomatter, where you don't have to, it's not a machine that has a battery that operates, but it doesn't have to, you don't need anti-rejection drugs to do it. That's going to be probably the next big turn. So you won't have to be an organ donor because they'll just use your own cells to print a kidney, that kind of stuff. Once that starts happening with some level of regularity, life as we know it, that will be a crest point where life as we know it, nobody would ever go back to going, I don't want to fucking, I don't think my kid needs a kidney. I know he's got kidney failure, renal failure, but we're going to trust in God and see if it comes back. What? You can grow him a brand new kidney with proper cells and it'll never get sick again? Fucking sign me up. I don't want my kid to die. Once you reach that point, no one has any logical, moral, or legal reason to go backwards. And that, I would argue, is the singularity. And we will reach that point before we realize we have achieved, quote unquote, the singularity. So, and I did bring up the kidney, but the thing isn't working right now. It's making me mad. I think. Hold on. Let's see if we can, who knows?
kidney has a very special place in the heart. The kidney has a very special place in the heart. The kidney has a very special place in the heart.
Dear God. Whew. That was scary. Whew. I'm all right. I think we're okay.